Hi everyone, welcome back to IYX Radio. Thank you so much for joining in with us today. And I would just like to welcome an amazing woman, Debbie Cockrell. Thank you so much for being here. Debbie is actually a fellow sister of mine from the Bosmont community. Um, in my own words, or in my own perception, I see Debbie as an eclectic powerhouse of a woman, a visionary, a mentor to many, and a path weaver. So thank you so much, Debbie, for sharing your time here and your energy with IWX Africa and IWX Radio.
Thanks so much, Sharri. Thanks for having me. I'm really excited to be here and see you face to face.
Yes.
It's really an awesome opportunity. Thank you so
After
much.
after a while, yes.
Yep.
And okay, so it is Women's Month, and before we do continue on into the interview, I just want to take some time to honor you, Debbie. You are such an inspiration to many, and you play a fundamental role in our community. I know that education is at the heart of who you are. And yeah, it's just so amazing to have you in this space and to be talking with you today. I actually had a
Thank you.
conversation with Tevin, who is a good brother that you've just recently met. And he was telling me about your meeting and how um, besides you being the passionate woman that you are, dedicated, selfless, he said one thing that really stood out about meeting you for that first time was just that you believed in him. You had so much belief
Oh,
in him that he believed in himself. And I feel this
yeah.
the same way for me as well when I first met you. So thank you for being that space holder and someone who believes in us, especially as youth.
Thank you. Thanks for that beautiful intro, Sherry. I think it's such a privilege and such an honor to meet interesting and motivated, driven young adults from our community.
Mhm.
It's something that I certainly hold close in my journey of what I do. That when you spot those diamonds, you kind of like,
Yes,
wow,
I
and you
know.
grab them and you hold them close and you find any opportunity to inspire and motivate. That's it's a sharing of energy.
Yeah.
You guys, Tevin, yourself, and so many of your
Mhm.
network that I've also been
Mhm.
following.
Mhm.
You guys are just like, I can just like close my eyes and think back to 20 years ago when I was roughly your age and go,
Mm.
I was in such a different space,
Yes,
but you
yes.
guys are super inspiring as well. So it
Thank
definitely goes
you.
both ways.
Definitely. Thanks so much, Debbie. Okay, so
Mm.
then let's go get into the questions. So, Debbie, please, can you just introduce yourself to our listeners? Maybe tell us a bit about your upbringing and where you are currently in your waking journey.
All right. All right. So yeah, proudly Bazas, we like to say
Mhm.
Bazas from the good old school kind of description.
Mhm.
In Johannesburg, sort of on the West Rand area of Johannesburg. And I was born here at Coronationville Hospital, now Rahima Musa
Mhm.
Hospital.
Mhm.
And my family lived in Musenberg Avenue, which is also known as the Lonely 13 area now.
Mhm.
And I went to school at GR Harris. I went to high school at RW Fick. That's where I matriculated from. And then my journey started into tertiary level, going to hotel school. I went to
Mhm.
Witstech, which
Mhm.
is now part of UJ. And I studied at hotel school. And then I was very fortunate to complete my studies in hospitality. And then I started to work in the industry as a chef. And then I found an incredible opportunity to go abroad and I started working in Ireland. And that really took me on a whole different journey within my career at that time.
Mhm.
I spent about 15 years in hospitality, and that was a combination of working in kitchens, working in restaurants. I moved over to the service side, restaurant management. I've done a bit of lecturing as well within the hospitality
Mhm.
school space. And then I got to a point in my career where I needed more, and that was sort of my mid 30s.
Okay.
And I realized there's got to be more. There's got to be more to life than a paycheck. And that was
Exactly.
when I really started working with my mom. My mom is the founder of an NPO, and I'd always, supported her and,
Yes.
gone to do my little, soup kitchen duties
Yes.
or Mandela Day duties and all of
Mhm.
those kind of things. And then I sort of approached her and saw that she was having some challenges. I was looking for a career change. And that was kind of a meeting of the two of us in a mother and daughter relationship that then moved into a mentor-mentee relationship. And where we currently sit is that, yeah, the baton has been passed on, if I can put it
Exactly.
that way. And about 9 years ago, my journey started within the community development space through the work that we do in Slovo Centre of Excellence.
That's so amazing, Debbie. Thank you. We will be
Yeah.
getting into Slovo Centre later, but wow, that's
Okay.
such a beautiful journey. And for me, I think food is really healing. So I feel like food, that being your start, you being a chef, like that's also a way of like getting out that love and that healing. So that's like you've
100%.
always been in that space of just giving,
100%.
Mhm.
I definitely see it as a very undiscovered part of the creative industry. Working with food, working with ingredients, you get to create.
Yeah.
The difference is it's not on a canvas, it's on a plate or in a pot, so to
Mhm.
speak. And through the industry, I really fell in love with travel, and that
Mm.
brought a whole new dimension of meeting people from different countries,
Yeah.
discovering different kinds of things through
Yes.
food, through travel.
Mhm.
So yeah, it's kind of sparked a whole bunch of other passion spaces,
Yes.
and I could definitely call it my first love.
Yes.
And I simply love sharing beautiful food with people, going to beautiful restaurants, exploring my taste palette.
It's a whole experience.
And
It's
yeah,
yeah.
those are all part of the adventures of being in the hospitality industry, I guess.
No, that's beautiful. That's really beautiful. So the other day, I saw that I think on Facebook you posted something that your friend actually said about you. She called you a polymath. Can you?
Okay.
I thought that was pretty interesting, and I checked it up, and I was like, wow. I mean, I think Debbie definitely is this. I see you as this. So what is it? If you can please explain to us, and is it something that you resonate with? Because I think it's really such an amazing word.
It's so fascinating. Thanks for picking up on that. I was having a moment, as we do sometimes,
Yes.
and I was just sort of reflecting on Women's Month, and I was reflecting on my own journey. And somebody that I consider a mentor shared that with me earlier this year, and for a while we had sort of had some discussions around becoming a bit more focused, becoming a bit more clear on what I'm doing, where I'm at, where
Mm.
my sort of journey
Yes.
is going for the next 5 to 10 years. And one of the things that she had shared with me was that maybe I need to get a bit more clear. And I said to her, I don't know how to do that because I like things. I have a creative, spirit. And so,
Mm.
I play in very different
Mm.
spaces. And then a few weeks after that conversation, she sent me the videos around a polymath.
Mm.
And I was literally tears in my eyes and
Mm.
laughter in my throat at the same time because I was like, oh my word, this is it.
This makes so
This
much
is a very
sense.
good description. I
Mm.
was like
Mm.
absolute resonance. And it really came at a time where I was trying to figure out, which direction do I go? Which direction do I focus? And it helped me to get the clarity that I needed around. You don't need one single path.
Yes. Yes.
We are multidimensional, multifaceted
Exactly.
beings as humans.
Yeah.
And so we can play in different areas. We just kind of maybe need to kind of figure out how that unfolds.
Yeah.
And where I can see things unfolding for my own journey as a polymath, maybe just to describe the word, is it's a person who has multiple passions. And it's a person that engages in those passions. So one of the videos was a guy telling his story, and he's a dentist, he's a musician, and he's an author.
Mm. Wow.
He also does some philanthropic work. So that was kind of 4 different areas completely unrelated to each
Mm.
other.
Yes.
And I was fascinated because I was like, oh my word, that's me.
Exactly. What?
It was very
Exactly.
funny. It was like a light bulb. Like those aha moments with the light bulb, and you're like, oh my word, this can't like how did I not hear this before?
No, I
But
feel you.
things come to us at the right time.
Exactly.
And so yeah, that was really a huge experience for me this year.
Yeah.
And it's kind of given me the peace, if I can call it that, to start recognizing that I have multiple skills. I can share in multiple spaces. I don't have to limit myself in my thinking, because sometimes we do that thinking. Society kind of dictates
That's
who and what and how.
true.
And so yeah, it's just been a game changer for me. It's been a
Yeah.
huge game changer, just to recognize and understand that there are other people out there who are creatives slash academics slash sports slash,
Mm,
whatever the
mm,
combination is for Polymath.
mm.
And there are many videos, so I encourage anybody who kind of maybe resonates
Definitely.
with that to just
I
go and Google it on YouTube and check it out.
Yeah, I'm gonna check. I'm gonna do some more research into it because, like, I feel the same way. I mean, like you're saying, as society, we usually have this one way of doing things. Success is this. Success is this. If you want to be successful, you have to be this. Sorry, this way.
Yeah, all
So,
good.
like for me it's not like that. For me, I feel like I'm different, and sometimes it causes me so much chaos within, or so much like um lack of clarity within, that I'm like, oh my, what is there something wrong with me? But when I
Yeah,
take a step back, and I appreciate who I am, that's when I'm like,
yes,
okay, I can actually play into all these spaces, into all these things.
100%.
And yeah, I also
I
resonated with that.
yeah.
Yeah.
I also think, Sherry, there's a shift that's happening in your generation, the late 20-year-old people, maybe even
Yes.
the Zennials. I don't know, what
Mm,
the terminology is, but
mm,
there's definitely a shift happening around a move away from, do the studies, get married, have the kids,
yes.
do the job for 30,
Yes.
40 years, get the gold watch. I mean, that's been changing for a while already. And where things are now, it's starting to become a little bit more acceptable to be multifaceted. And I love that. I feel like I'm a little bit ahead of that, which is great, because now I can be like, okay, cool. The world is kind of catching up in
Catching
that
up.
in that thinking, because
Mhm.
I don't want to be boxed. I don't want to be
Oh,
limited. I want
never.
to explore different facets.
Mm.
One day I still want to write the book,
Exactly,
or
exactly.
several.
Yeah.
I want to explore different things that intrigue me. I don't have to turn it into a career. I just want to play with it and see what it does.
Exactly.
Writing is
Yeah.
writing is part of that kind of conversation. But I think that there's a big shift that's happening, and I'm seeing it more and more with the younger generation, and it's exciting,
Yes.
because for me it kind of taps into the conversation around sustainability.
Yes.
You've got to have multiple skills. The workplace is starting to recognize it from that perspective as well. They're not looking only for chartered accountants or only engineers.
Yes.
They're looking for people with different
Yes.
layers.
Different layers and
So it's
different.
important.
Yeah. No, I totally feel you. Like I'm just so
It's
100%
so
on board.
cool. I
Yes,
think it's
I'm
so
so
cool.
100% in agreement. And like it's such a complex conversation, because first I'm going back to like my mother, or our parents, for example, like your mother. She was a pioneer in her time. She was doing these things. She has this NPO. She was the one that paved the way for you. Same with my mom and my dad.
100%.
You know what I mean? My family, it wasn't easy for them. However, through their struggles, and through them becoming more clear about who they are and living in their authenticity, we as the young people now are able to take that step easier. And
100%.
yeah, yeah, no, 100%, I feel that way.
No, you're so right around, heritage, pioneering.
Exactly. Mm,
I remember when myself, my sister, my late brother were all finished with school. We all
mm,
went to tertiary, and the only reason we could complete tertiary studies was because my mom worked at the university,
mm.
and there's no way we would have been able to
Exactly.
afford tertiary level education.
Right.
And so we were some of the first members in our family that were able to qualify beyond matric.
Wow.
And now we've got so many more cousins and nieces and
Exactly.
nephews that are able to access a tertiary level education. But there is something to be said about those who go before us, those that lay the foundation, and then we
Exactly.
carry on. So when you
Exactly.
get to another layer, you realize that you're setting the foundation for another layer. And
Exactly.
so, the
It's like
cycle
that
continues.
cycle,
And it's
100%.
important to recognize that. It's
No,
very
definitely.
exciting conversation, because I think what IYX is doing is
Mm,
incredible. I'm a huge fan of your guys' work around Indigenous people
mhm,
and just raising the voice, man. So
definitely.
it's laying foundation. There's going to be
Yes,
another
it is.
generation that's going to take it to another layer, and it's wonderful,
No,
really.
it's definitely exciting. It's very exciting. Um, okay then, Devi. So this month, as we said, is Women's Month, and we celebrate women, but it's not all sunshine and dandelions. We are we're facing some deep trauma as women in South Africa, some violence and pain. How do you feel as a woman in South Africa at the moment?
Yeah, it's definitely on the layer of a pandemic.
Yeah.
We've just come through 2 years of having lived through real time of a pandemic. We know what that means in our generation. And without a doubt, violence against women is a pandemic in our country, and it needs some serious intervention. I read a terrible statistic the other day that said we're the rape capital of the world. And I was like, no, where's the good stuff about South Africa? Because
Yeah.
that's all people kind of hear abroad. It's the
Exactly.
one-dimensional media-related image,
Yes.
violence, crime, gender-based violence,
Mhm.
rape,
Mhm.
that's certainly not the South Africa I know or am part of or
Yeah.
remember in my upbringing.
Exactly.
But it is something we need to consider around not only so much how the world views us, but how we view ourselves and what story do we want to tell about our communities and our
Yeah.
country.
Yeah.
And if I think about the sporting fraternity, for example, in South Africa, that's just done an incredible job, at the Commonwealth, the CAF Cup, I'm blown away. I'm blown away by the caliber of sports people we have participating at a global level. But that gets clouded by the negativity. We
Yes.
just had a terrible incident out on the West Rand,
Yes.
and it has honestly sent shockwaves through the country.
Yeah.
Women are living in fear. There's no
Yeah.
doubt about it.
Yeah.
We can't bury our heads in the sand and say it doesn't exist. It's real. It's real every day. And there is a movement of people that are working in that realm full time. It's part of the reason why I really thrive and love what the NPO sector offers to
So
society,
important.
is that civil support to people on the ground.
Mm.
And a lot of it is linked into trauma, counseling,
Exactly.
support services, safe houses. All of those things are not they're not provided by our government. They're provided by NPOs and churches.
Exactly. And thank goodness, like you're saying, thank goodness
Religious-based
for those
organizations.
organizations. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
Debbie, I was having a conversation. I did an interview last week, I told you, and we were having this conversation as well. And I went and I took a step back and I looked into, for example, our communities, Bosmont, Westbury, Nuclear, and looking at the relationship that men have with themselves. Let's just say men specifically, because we're talking about gender-based violence. Men have with
Okay.
themselves, the examples they have within our communities. There's such a deep-seated trauma within our communities specifically. And how do we go about rectifying that? It's really difficult because it starts there at that core space, you know so yeah.
I think one of the challenges that we have, Sherry, whether it's in our community or
Mm.
neighboring communities or different province,
Mm.
but one of the challenges that we have is that people don't recognize the power of collaboration and working
Yeah.
together.
Mm.
And so you've got a lot of amazing initiatives happening across the country, whether it be in the Cape Province, in Natal, up in the Northern Cape area, Gauteng. It doesn't matter where. There's amazing stuff happening, but what's lacking is cohesion, and
Yeah.
what's lacking is the recognition of the power of unity.
Mm.
And so for
Mm.
me, this is a big part of the conversation around sustainable interventions. What does that mean? It's not just about solar energy and saving water.
Mm. Mm.
It's about people on the ground recognizing that shared resources can impact greater, working together with those shared resources and with each other's networks and with each other's support spaces can actually have a greater impact. So, when we speak around, interventions around how do we break the cycles, how do we engage men, there's got to be a coming together of multiple entities.
Yeah.
It's not just looking at again the one-dimensional.
One
It's
exactly.
going back into the history, it's going back into the trauma. It's
Exactly.
going back and recognizing that there are wounds that need to be
Mhm.
healed. There are
Yeah.
conversations, hard conversations that need to be had.
Yeah.
There are, there's a lovely phrase going around at the moment around fireplace conversations.
Mhm,
And
mhm.
I really see these kind of opportunities being possible going forward with these kind of topics where they're a little bit informal, but they also have a structure to them because the subject matter or the topic needs to be very clear. And it's unpacking trauma, unpacking the male trauma, unpacking the female trauma,
Female trauma. Yeah.
unpacking the single-headed household trauma,
Yes.
unpacking the broken families based on
Violence.
apartheid trauma.
Exactly.
That is
Yeah.
all. Those are like generational issues. We're not going to solve that around a
No.
conversation, but
No.
maybe that's a starting point, where it just
Exactly.
feels comfortable to kind of open up.
Engage.
And then perhaps some of that healing that we're talking about can happen because it's a brokenness. It's an
It
internal
really is.
brokenness.
It really is.
And we see it in our communities every day. It's a destructiveness, but it's also a reflection of destructive of self.
Self, exactly.
When I met Steven, for example, the other day, I was blown away. He blew me
Mm.
away.
I'm so happy.
And I'm so encouraged that there are men like that in our community who want to have hard conversations because that's how it's going to happen. It's got to be driven by the men, right?
Exactly.
So what I could see my role being is how do we create a platform for that?
Yeah.
How do we provide a space where somebody can do that hard work that's required by
Exactly.
creating the right environment for it, by facilitating the space for it. that
Exactly.
is that is part of where I see my role within
Yeah.
that bigger picture.
Yeah.
Even though it's completely out of what I do every day, there is
Mm-hmm.
an opportunity.
Definitely.
So that's where that collaboration comes in, those support networks come in.
Network.
How do we support each other?
Yeah.
Because ultimately, everything impacts everyone. It doesn't matter what sphere you're in. It doesn't matter what demographic you are. It doesn't
No,
matter,
definitely.
what your status is. We
Yeah.
all people, we all
No.
humans. Everybody kind of wants the same basic stuff.
Yeah.
You want to feel safe. You want to have an income to feed your family. You want to have a warm bed to sleep in and food in the fridge. And you
Exactly.
want to have a fridge.
Yeah.
It's that
Exactly.
basic. So for
Exactly.
me, we have to just try and figure out how do we bring the resources
Yeah.
together to make those things happen for people at the layer that they want to express from, you
Yeah, I
know?
agree with you. And now while you're talking, that word self-belief came to my mind. And with that, I think it's important, especially as youth or, wherever we are, to realize the impact that we have as individuals. You know what I mean? I feel like we're walking around, fine, we're here, we're trying to survive, we're making the money, we're doing what we got to do, hustling. But none of us are actually realizing our inherent power, our
Mhm.
inherent selflessness, or their being of service. You know what I mean? And I think that in our schools, in our society, in our families, letting our youngsters know their impact, letting them know their power. I think that's really important because
Yeah,
besides, our organizations, we need to know that if I touch you, if I say hi to you, if I just give you a hug, that is impactful. And I think that's also where it starts. It's not in the negativity, it's in the positivity, it's in how I
yeah,
love myself
yeah,
and how much I value
yeah.
myself. So yeah,
And
no.
they refer to that very much as a growth mindset,
Mhm,
Sharri. So a
mhm.
growth mindset is when you speak from a point of internal strength or
Yes.
internal positivity. And it's important for us to recognize that a lot of our community
Yeah.
doesn't recognize growth mindset. We
No.
actually fall into a poverty mindset. I
Yes.
don't have, I'll never be good enough.
Yes.
I'll never have enough money. And when you start to realize these sort of concepts or
Psychology.
pearls of knowledge, you
Mhm.
actually realize that you don't need money. You don't need a big building. You don't need any
The
of the things
excess.
we've been told to believe that we
Yes.
need. What you need is self-belief, as you're saying. You need to have a spirit of wanting to give. So rather than wanting to take and
Yeah.
receive, you need to
Yeah.
recognize that it's from in out, and then it
Yeah.
kind of cycles back in.
Mhm.
So those are elements, I suppose, that we would define as life skills, you
Yes.
know.
Yes.
And that's some of the stuff that's missing in our educational system, in our homes,
Yes.
in our societies, in our communities.
Yeah.
It's those are really basic life skills and values,
Foundational.
I suppose, as well.
Mhm.
Yeah. So it's again, when we look at, holistic programs or
Yeah.
holistic interventions, we need to recognize all those kinds of layers that make up a person. So I remember doing a really cool course in 2015 through UJ around social entrepreneurship. And one of the things that I learned in that course was that there's three kinds of poverty. And I was like, three kinds of poverty, what
Mm.
does that mean? And then they broke it down for us. And so you get a physical poverty, which is obviously a meal, feeling
Mhm.
nourished, actually having something to eat.
Right.
And then you get mental poverty, and then you get spiritual poverty. And
Mhm.
I tell you, Sharri, when I grasped that concept, it was like fireworks going off in
Yes.
my mind, because a lot of stuff started to make sense of why people sometimes struggle to get to where they need to get to. It's because we are lacking in some of those areas
Exactly.
through spiritual
Yeah.
poverty, emotional,
Yeah.
all of those things. It's not just about feeding the
No.
physical self with the meal, the
Exactly.
tummy, but really looking at some of those internal spaces, and then that spirituality that some people have through religion or whatever their belief
The
system is.
guidance.
You need
Yes.
that. You need
Yeah.
that. You need those guiding principles to feel whole and to feel centered and to feel driven through purpose.
Yeah.
So there's all of these things I really feel are starting to shift in the world, because people are starting to say, we're tired of just working for the man,
The
and
same
there's your
old
30-year
thing.
job, and
Mm.
what does it count for? What value have I added to my society? Even my
Exactly.
family is my society.
Exactly.
So I think it's shifting. I think it's shifting. So that for me is a very positive move. I
Yeah.
feel that it's also come out of COVID. It's given us
Mm.
a reset button. It's
Definitely.
allowed people to go, what are the things that matter to me?
Really
People
matter.
have
Definitely.
had such incredible losses during this time, loss of job, loss
Yeah.
of family members and loved
Yeah.
ones, loss of lifestyle, so
Mhm.
all of these things kind of, it shakes us. We need a bit of a shake,
We do. We do.
so I
No,
think it's a good
definitely.
time. It's a good time for things just to kind of get rattled a little bit. And then for us to really look at how we want to impact, where we want to impact. There's so many opportunities. You can't do everything, but we
No.
can choose to say, what are my skills? What are my talents? What is my
Yes.
belief system?
Any
Where do
places
I
at.
want to then move forward? Yeah.
Definitely, definitely, Debbie. Um, okay, so Debbie, we have, I think it's 8 more minutes. Would you be able to come back
Okay.
on to a new?
Yeah, no problems.
Okay.
Yeah.
So let me ask you one more question. I think that we can use this 8 minutes, and then once it goes off, we can just
Okay.
come back on. I think just give me 20 minutes
Okay.
so that it can load, the audio and the video can load. I'll just let you know when to come back on.
Okay.
Okay.
All right.
So Debbie, can you tell us a little bit about the incredible woman like your mother, your sister, all these incredible women that surround you? How did they impact you, and what are the lessons that you've learned from them that will stay with you?
Lovely. Thanks for that,
Mm.
Sherry. So without a doubt, I never imagined myself working with my mom. It was never in my career destiny. Oh, why do I
Mm.
want to work with my mom? I kind of fell into it. What started off as 6 months sabbatical from my career has turned into 9 years. And it's been a really interesting journey of getting to know my mom, like working with her versus being mother and daughter are two very different things,
Mm.
right?
Mm.
And I'm very grateful that I come from a very matriarchal family.
Mm.
So my mom's mom, my granny, Sylvia Meadows, is also from the Bosmont community, and she was very active in the community. And
Mm.
without a doubt, I can see that kind of legacy. I often have to remind myself that I work in legacy.
Exactly.
There's a passing down of traits or values that has without a doubt come from my grandmother. through my mom.
Mm.
And you don't always plan it. My mom always jokes and says she didn't have a succession plan for the NPO.
Mm.
When we started working together, she also thought it would be a year, maybe two,
Yes.
and then I'd be on my way again, maybe traveling again, or going into some other space. So we have a good laugh all the time around how this journey has been an unfolding for both of us.
Yeah.
And so I think one of my greatest lessons that I've learned from my mom through this journey is to stay open,
Mm.
to be a lifelong learner, and to recognize that opportunities are always around the corner. It's where you want to be, it's what you want to do, but then you also have to recognize purpose.
Yes.
And I never thought of my life in that thinking. What I did feel coming out of hospitality was like, I need more than just the
Mm.
paycheck, you know.
Mm.
And so through working in this NPO, in the community space with children, I've discovered purpose.
Exactly.
And now I'm finding myself at a very different juncture where there's all sorts of other opportunities unfolding in that polymath conversation.
Yes.
And I'm kind of going like, wow, I never saw this coming. So just, staying open. My mom's favorite word is be flexible. It
Mm.
took me at least 5 years to grasp that, because
Mm.
I'm like, from hospitality, this is how we do it. There's a sheet, you follow the sheet, you get things done. Tomorrow's a new day, new sheet, new
Yes.
problems, you deal
Yes.
with it. But in the NPO and community based environment, it doesn't work like that. There's no sheet.
Gotta be
And
adaptable.
you're completely living in faith. You're completely being directed by, not only the need, but also the resources available.
Mm.
You've got to become very innovative.
Mm.
You got to become very resilient.
Mm.
That you kind of have to believe a lot of self-belief
Exactly, a lot
as
of self-belief.
developed for me. And then
Connection.
you just got to learn to trust the universe, man. Trust
Yes.
God, trust the universe, however you want to
100%.
call it. But we always joke and say we work in miracle land,
That's
and
beautiful.
miracle land is because you never know what tomorrow holds. And then the miracles come and you're like, wow.
Especially at that last moment, that last minute, that last moment when you really need it. Oh no, that's so beautiful. So it was
100%.
it was pretty much a journey into self. This has been
Yes,
a journey into self. That's beautiful.
100%, without a doubt. Completely unplanned. Yeah, of course, a little bit of planning from the perspective of this is what I can offer. So when I first started with my mom, I said, look, I've got a bit of corporate background. I've been and worked with people. I've been doing
I've
stuff.
been
So let me
managed
come in and bring
people.
in some systems.
Mm.
Let me help you to formalize some of the stuff that I can see these challenges with, because it's quite an informal sector.
Mm.
Not a lot of people who work back then, and still as well within NPOs, they're people driven by heart. They're not
Yes,
people driven by skill.
yes,
So that's the professional world.
100%.
So a lot of people my mom's age, there's many of them in our community, are people driven by heart. And that's been a part of my learning, is to recognize how do we take heart
Yeah,
and balance it with skill, because you can't actually have one, you can't have too much of the one and less of
mm.
the other. It's
Balance.
actually a balancing act,
Yes,
and
yes,
that's what I feel that my generation can add value to the sector.
yes.
We can bring a little bit more
There's more
skill.
sustainability.
We 100%, it all linked into the sustainability
Yeah.
conversations, and we can add value because we've actually been doing some stuff where we've learned some new skills within whatever job it is. So I find a lot of people my age that have kind of left corporate
Mm.
and have started working with their moms in the NPOs. It's
Mm. That's
fascinating.
beautiful. And I
It's
mean, even
amazing. It's
even this
amazing.
this digital world, that or this digital space that we're in at the moment, oh, it's crazy. You're learning new things constantly, and like you're saying, you have to be innovative. So yeah, no, that makes a lot of sense, Debbie.
Awesome. Awesome.
Amazing. Okay, Debbie, so just the last final questions. As our listeners heard, we are both from Bosmont, the lovely Bosmont community, and I just wanted to ask you, what is some of the things that you love the most about living in Bosmont? Just the community in general, and then like the individuals. What's your favorite thing?
Sure. the tricky one.
Oh, and
I think,
please give me, you can please give
yeah,
our
yeah.
listeners also just some background about Bosmont, maybe a little bit of history.
Okay. All
Thank
right.
you.
So yeah, I think, I grew up in Bosmont. I did my schooling here, and then our family moved, and I started traveling, and then I never thought I'd come back and live here, to be very honest. But I moved back home with my parents, so that's where I'm based right now. And I suppose one of the things I definitely recognize that's very unique about Bosmont is that there are multiple generations of people here, from my grandparents, my parents, myself. I've got friends that are so my age group that I have their kids, so they're on like a fourth generation cycle already, which I think it's very fascinating because there's not many communities I think that have this kind of heritage when it comes
Yes.
to the family
Mm,
nucleus. So that's something that's really unique about
mm,
Bosman.
mm,
And then certainly, being part of BCGP, the Bosmont Community Green Project, we are an environmentally focused group. And one of the things that I'm learning about Bosmont through the group is that we have these interesting um, diversity of people, so when you kind of grow up here, your family, the people
mm.
you went to school with, you might know people that are like maybe like the neighbors,
Yes.
but I'm meeting people that are from this community that I've never met before. You're one of them, right?
Yes,
Like
yes,
I
yes.
met the incredible Sharri through BCGP, and just like really amazing people. And then as this journey is also kind of unfolding, I'm starting to recognize that a lot of people who have been schooled through CJB in particular,
Yeah.
as a high school institution that was very prominent during the 70s, the 80s, the 90s within the colored community,
Yes.
has like a huge history of people that have come out of that schooling system during the sort of pre-apartheid era, but also post as well,
Mm.
that are like phenomenal people, like
Wow.
doing amazing things in our country, let alone our community,
Yeah. Yeah.
locally, internationally, business people, academics,
Mm,
sports people,
mm,
entrepreneurs. And I mean, that's blowing my mind. I'm learning a lot of this sort of thing at the moment.
mm.
So I think Bosman's got an incredibly rich history.
Really,
And in fact, I think Bosman turned 60 years old this year, Sherry, if I'm not mistaken.
really.
And there's definitely some conversations happening around celebrating that.
Yeah, that would be amazing.
One of the very important things I have to mention around Bosman is there's I think we're one of the most condensed communities with a diversity of religious-based organizations
Yes.
that are, very much in the same area.
Mm,
So what Bosman's also sort of become known for is that people can live, sort of cohabit, I think is the sort of word, with diversity. So
yeah.
you've got your Islamic community mixed with your Catholic community, mixed with your Protestant community,
Yeah.
Methodist.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it's unheard of in some parts of the world. People get
Yeah.
shot,
Exactly,
for
exactly.
being
We are
different.
so blessed. We are so blessed. Oh,
100%. And
definitely.
it really for me speaks to the as a sample of a community that speaks to the colored culture of
Yes.
diversity. I mean, we
Yes.
are the most diverse culture in the
Exactly.
world.
Exactly.
And so it speaks into that, people
No,
people can kind of
mm,
live according to whatever their values are, their religious places are,
mm,
but they can still respect each other, they can
yeah.
still get married,
Yes.
they can still share experiences
Celebrate
together,
together. Mhm,
celebrate, all of
mhm.
that. And I
Yeah.
think that's something very unique,
Yes,
so
it's
it's
very
interesting
unique.
to be part of a community with that level of historical value.
No, definitely. I mean, my grandfather, well, the story that I was told, my grandparents actually bought the plot of land when there was no, like almost no development there. And it was just, it's such a beautiful thing to know that you come from something so rich. And
Yes,
I know a lot of like my friends that don't have that. And even
yes,
when in like, the indigenous space that or the work that we're doing, a lot of like we were talking about the traumas and things like that, it comes from a lack of knowledge of self, you know what I mean?
100%.
And to have that, it's such a blessing. It really is.
Yeah, yeah. No, I think it's definitely something for me that's on my radar around um heritage, you
Yeah,
know.
yeah.
How do we start? Because I think one of our challenges as the colored nation in South Africa, as we recognized, is
Mm.
we can't go back kind of more than like maybe like 4 generations, maybe 5 at the most. So it's kind of like grandparents, great grandparents, and
Yes.
maybe one more. And
Mm.
then there's no paper trail.
Yes, yes,
There's
yes.
nothing that you can find. You might find one line or one parent or,
Mm, mm,
somewhere there's something. But
mhm.
because of the lack of access to paperwork, we have a lot to discover. I think we only at the starting point of that. And there's an incredible new tool that I was reminded of this week at the women's event that I went to on the 9th,
Mm.
where this lady, the guest speaker, was speaking about doing the DNA test, which you
Yes.
can do to trace your matriarchal line.
Okay, yes, yes.
And I think she came up in her breakdown. It's all in percentages, so it'll be like 25% this,
Mm, mm, mm.
23% that, 3%
Mhm.
this. And I've got a few friends that have done it, and I'm so keen and interested to do this because
Mm.
we have heritage that stretches across Europe,
Woof.
across Asia, across Africa.
Yes,
It's so diverse, and let alone the indigenous people of South Africa, the
exactly.
San, the Khoi,
Exactly.
like what a melting pot,
And
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 I'm sorry, Shay,
mhm.
I'm always reminded of when we hosted the 2010 World Cup, and they were building all the different stadiums according to what that city kind of represented,
Yes,
and the Joburg Stadium was the Potjie.
yes.
And I was like, that is perfect because Joburg is the
Oh,
melting pot,
yes, it is. It is.
So that's very synonymous with the colored culture. We're like a
Mhm.
melting pot of these different
Exactly.
cultures and
And
subcultures, and it's awesome.
and that's why when we talk about the power of self, and that self knowledge, this we come from so much. We come from
Yeah.
such amazing things, different people, different countries and communities, that it's there within our
Yes.
DNA.
Yes.
So now that's so beautiful. And I mean, Debbie, if you can just, I know that you need to run soon.
All good.
If you can give our listeners some background about the Bosmont Community Green Project, what it is that the committee is doing, and yeah, like what do you guys see moving forward for the community?
All right. So BCGP is a group of residents that came together and started to recognize that the state of degradation in our community is a problem. And again, it's not only Bosmont, it's across the country. We're seeing this in multiple communities around service delivery.
Exactly.
So there's lots of challenges around, illegal dumping, waste management, that sort of element. But I think for a broader, part of the conversation is that global warming is real. The environmental issues we're dealing with, climate change is real, and we're not seeing enough people kind of catching the wakey,
Yes.
if I can call it that,
Yes. Mm-hmm.
So, while the rest of the world is moving into, separation at source in the home, sustainable purchases from a retail perspective, food sustainability, growing their own food, moving away from, GMO kind of things.
Right.
That's all kind of happening at a global level, but we're not seeing that quite pull through at community level.
Yeah.
So the group has really been established to see how we can, start raising awareness around some of these conversations. So education, I suppose, plays a pivotal role in that. It's education around bylaws, it's education around concepts like waste management, food and nutrition. And we're really just looking to see how we can gather resources to get our community to that level.
Mm.
So we've got a couple of projects running on the ground within Bosmont. One of them is the Bosmont Spread,
Yes.
which is actually a natural wetland.
Mm-hmm.
And we've been engaging the city of Joburg for quite a few months, along with some stakeholders, from the community, trying to really see how we can rehabilitate that part of our community that's gone through a lot of degradation over the last 20 years.
Yeah.
And then we've got a food garden that has been established at the Bosmont Primary School. And that's really just to start seeing how we can integrate and encourage children to recognize where does food come from. It doesn't come from the Pick and Pay shelf or the Woolworths shelf or whatever the case may be. You can actually grow food, and this is going to be a huge topic for the next generation of children.
Yes, massive.
Food security. And then, you know, as we develop there's all sorts of things that we're looking to establish. But I think our biggest challenge at the moment is that it's fully volunteer based. You know, most of our members work full time. So we do this as an additional within our schedules. So it's a little bit limiting from that perspective. Our resources are limited as well. We don't really have any funding or anything like that. But we are looking at galvanizing some support within that space and really, you know, calling out to anyone who wants to come on board to help us drive change from an environmental sustainability perspective. We participated in our first competition this year, which was super exciting. That was hosted by the City of Joburg through the City Parks and Zoos department. And we were highlighted along with about 30 other NPOs that are all focused within the Gauteng, Johannesburg region, who are focused on environmental issues. And I mean, it's unheard of.
Amazing.
10 years ago, there were no community-based organizations at community level that were focusing on food, education, food gardens, anything to do with, you know, water management. So it's very exciting to see slow steps happening, but certainly to see that something's happening. And one of the encouraging things from that competition was that they had primary schools involved in Johannesburg, high schools, and then NPOs. And I think that by this time next year, those numbers are easily going to double from a community-based organization perspective. So it's good to see that, you know, there is movement in the sector, and when I'm talking environmental sustainability, but it's slow, and we really need to ramp it up, and we need to encourage the conversations around indigenous growing methods. I know you guys are big on that with your team. I think it's Q7 and the guys doing the projects up in the Northern Cape. You know, it's so encouraging for me to see young adults doing that. It doesn't matter where you are. You just go and get involved, roll up your sleeves, go and learn how to, you know, compost. Waste management is such a huge part of our global issues. And it's just, and it all, for me, it all ties into education, you know. So it's an exciting time to be involved. There's lots of projects happening. It's just a case of looking at what speaks to you, you know, what moves you. Some people are more into rivers, other people are more into food security, other people are more into education. There's something for everyone.
I think even the BCGP Green Times is writing articles, he's going out in
lovely opportunity for us through the Green Times. We call it our mouthpiece. You know, it allows us to bring in local content to tell our own stories. So we encourage our community members to write stories. We've got a Green Times team that puts that together from a digital perspective. We've just released this week our August issue, which has got, you know, all kinds of articles around what's been happening within Bosmont, but also some of the conversations around Women's Day and the fact that our community comes from the doorstep of Rahima Musa and Helen Joseph Hospital. I mean, those are big deals, man. We have to celebrate, you know.
Definitely.
And so it's exciting. It's exciting to be part of growth spaces, you know, spaces where people are willing to really get involved, to share their skills, to give their time, and to see how can I add value to my environment, you know. For me, that's magic.
Debbie, I know we have 5 minutes left, so I've just got two questions for you. The first one is, please tell us a little bit about your passion of education and the Slovo Centre of Excellence, please, and your toy library.
Okay, so thanks for asking about the toy library, Sharri. So basically, my mom started the Slovo Centre of Excellence about 17 years ago, and she really started it as a wayside Sunday school. And that's really where you go along the wayside and you host a Sunday school on a Sunday with
Yeah.
children that don't attend church. They don't
Mm.
really have a sort of faith-based space. And it grew from a sort of 20, 30 children to 100 children to 150 children. And she started that in the Slovo Park informal settlement, which is just behind the Coronationville area.
Yes.
And the reason that she sort of did that was she just wanted to give back. She just wanted to, find an opportunity to use her love of children. She'd always worked with children through a church spaces with Sunday school. And so she was like, okay, she was kind of, reaching retirement. How can she give back? And that's what she started, a Wayside Sunday School. And that then developed into an after school care. We were, well, at that point I hadn't joined her yet, but she then registered the entity as an NPO, which is Slovo Centre of Excellence, based on the Slovo Park informal settlement where it was established. And in the blink of an eye, there was 150 children attending from Monday to Friday.
They need
And so yeah, huge need.
Yeah.
Children who didn't have access to a dining room table to do their homework on, somebody to help them with reading, somebody just to a place to be safe. Really,
Exactly.
that was really how the center was established. And in the journey, she was exposed to the toy library and what that entails. And she found that this was a really important tool for children to use play as a method of supporting the educational journey.
Right.
So over the years, we've really developed the toy library concept. We're also part of an organization called TLASA, which stands for Toy Library Association of South Africa.
Oh,
I serve in the steering committee as well. And that's a national body for toy libraries across South Africa.
wow.
And it's such an incredible network to be part of, because everybody within toy libraries is an advocacy role for play. And when you start to understand how children develop, how their brains work from a sort of neuroscience perspective, children's language is play. It doesn't matter if they're English or Afrikaans or Setswana speaking. It doesn't matter if they come from Sandton or Diepsloot. Children's language is play. And so we found this to be an incredible tool to bridge the gap of learning. So we are not academics or educators from that background, but we do hold a space for children to engage in play-based activities, using games, using resources for learning. We've also run programs around computer literacy for children. So many different opportunities. And then one of the interesting projects we've launched in 2018 was working with early childhood development centers in our community. So those are creches or daycare centers. So from Petrada Park, Slovo Park, Westbury, Nuclear, we've got 2 out in Innerdale as well. We just play a support role. We make sure that the principal is the partner that we engage with, and they can then access resources from the toy library that can enhance the learning in the creche. So what you often find in our creches, in our communities, is that they're quite full, but they don't have a lot of resource access. So I'm talking about things like basic Lego. I'm talking about outdoor play material. I'm talking about puzzles and word games, social board games, all of these things that for more affluent communities are kind of a given. And that is where children start to engage in learning opportunities through play. So that's what we do. It's
That's
lovely. It's so much fun.
Wow, Debbie, that's so amazing.
It's so
Okay, and
much fun.
how can people get involved in BCGP as well as Slovo Centre of Excellence? Is there something that we can, donations that we can provide, or just sharing, your online resources, etc.?
Awesome. So for BCGP, we do have a Facebook page. If anybody wants to follow us on Facebook, it's under Bosmont Community Green Project. You'll see all of our activities posted there, some of the events that we participate in as well. And we would welcome any interaction. People can DM direct as well. And then on Slovo Centre of Excellence side, we do have a website. So it's www.slovocentre.co.za. And that will give, a full view of the activities that we engage in. We are currently in a little bit of a state of limbo. We are currently relocating. So we will be moving our premises, but we are just a little bit in that sort of period at the moment. But our contact details are there as well. You can also find me on Facebook, Deborah Cockrell, Deborah, and reach out. We're always open to conversations. anything to do with, resource enhancement for our community. We really see ourselves as a conduit, whether it's through BCGP from an environmental perspective, or the toy library in terms of toy and play resources, access to skills development, anything along that line. It all starts with a conversation. So if there's anyone out there interested in knowing more or getting involved, you're more than welcome to contact me.
Thank you so much, Debbie. One more question. Please,
Yes.
if there's anything, if there's any type of advice that you can give to young women or just women in general, right now where we're at, please provide us with that advice.
All right. So I'm gonna tie it into another project that I'm involved with, Sharri, called Social Impact Africa. And it's a partnership that I've done with a friend that I've recently met, Radhika. And we are really looking to create an ecosystem of support for young South Africans who are looking to develop their business, but the business needs to have a social impact value. So it's either teaching someone something, or developing people within the community, or offering a service or a product that impacts people's lives. This is a huge passion project for myself. It has been for a number of years. How do we move away from just profit driven to all money, but with social value and social impact? So my advice linking into this part of the conversation is, don't be afraid to try. Don't be afraid to, put your dreams down. I don't believe in one dream or one goal. Put them all down, make a list. If it's 150, then so be it. And then maybe work back from there and see what is attainable between now and the next 3 months, or now in the next 12 months. And rather prioritize those goals, but don't forget them, those dreams. Because I find myself in a situation where something that I put together 6 years ago, I've had to go and pull off the shelf and say the time for it is now. So for me, it's about dream big, put your ideas down. It's not always the right time, but get it out there, get it out of your system and see where the opportunities come, because they will. That's the great thing about life, is when you start to engage in something that you love, the windows and the doors start to open. And they lead you down different paths, and you start seeing things, tapping into other things. So that's really my advice is for women out there, for young adults as well. Don't be afraid to dream big. And if you don't know how to dream, go talk to somebody that can guide your thinking. Seek knowledge, seek support in terms of mentorship or conversations, people that can help you to maybe, put that into a sort of plan, plan of action, because sometimes we lack those resources in terms of skills. But once you start looking, trust me, the opportunities, they come.
Well, thank you so much,
That's it.
Debbie. I really, really appreciate
Awesome.
your time. And I hope that you have an amazing, amazing evening. And I hope to speak to you soon.
Thank you so much, Sharri. If I can just say thanks to you for being the awesomeness that you are, and really wishing you and the team at IYX all the best going forward. We here to showcase each other's work. We here to encourage and inspire each other. So if there's any way we can support you through what you're doing in your organization, please always feel free to reach out. And just know that there's people in the background like rooting.
Thank you so much. Really appreciate it, Debbie, honestly.
Awesome.
Okay.
Awesome. Take care, my darling.
Have a good one then.
Thanks very much to your listeners as well. Enjoy the rest of the week.
Okay, you too. Bye.
Ciao, ciao.